Hi, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us virtually. My name is Elena Figueroa, and I'm the Parents Association Chair for grades pre-K through 8. I, along with Beth Hughes, the PA Chair for grades 9 through 12, want to welcome you to our first ever whole school Parents Association. Our newsletter came out and it included a link to a list of Gulliver owned small businesses that are still operating during this time. I hope that you will all check it out and look at these Raider family businesses that we can support during this time. Also want to take a moment to thank our administrators, our counselors, and our teachers for everything that they're doing to make our kids continue to be learning and engaged, even virtually. My husband and I are amazed every day seeing all that they're doing, their creativity, their innovation, and keeping with our Gulliver spirit during this time to make sure our kids continue to learn and grow at home. Now, I'd like to pass things over to our school's president, Cliff Kling.
Thank you so much, Elena, and it's so great to connect with everyone today. We're always so grateful for our Parents Association, and it's not by accident that this first event that we're doing as a school in this remote environment is in fact a Parent Association meeting. And that really just highlights the important role our Parents Association plays in building community and our school family partnership. And so thanks to Elena and to Beth for organizing today's meeting. We have a very full program that my colleagues and I are excited to share with you today, and we want to jump right into that. And I want to begin by sharing our institutional priorities as we've had to respond and manage this crisis. And these are not only in terms of order of importance, they're also listed in terms of how we dealt with these, that each of these priorities came on initially separately. So the first priority always is ensuring the health, safety, and well-being of every member of our school community. And that was our sole focus when this crisis began to emerge. And it was especially challenging in the early stages as the information was so rapidly evolving and changing. And so that was our first initial sole priority. Then the second priority was the continuation of learning. And really, as we thought about continuing learning, that priority came about as a result of the feeling that we may not be able to continue on-campus instruction in a safe manner. So we began to think about how could we develop a remote learning model. And we started developing that at the beginning of March. And I recall a faculty meeting we had on March the 11th, which we'd had multiple times the faculty had been together before that time. But March 11th, which was a Wednesday, both at the prep and at the academy, we had faculty meetings talking about what would happen if we have to go into this remote learning model. And little did we know that the very next day, March the 12th, we would be announcing to our school community that we would be closing our campuses beginning March the 16th. And that just highlights how quickly this whole situation has been emerging and changing. And I just want to continue to offer a huge thanks to our teachers, to our educational technology and instructional support team, our leadership teams, our maintenance and security staff, many of whom are still working on our campuses to keep them safe and to keep them functioning. We're just so grateful for all of them. As we've developed this remote learning model, our big focus has been on connection and engagement, even more so than rigor and content. And certainly the academic content is important, but our focus, we know that our students and our families need the connection and engagement. And today is such a great part of connecting our community. And then the third priority that came on after those two priorities are really trying to begin to understand the financial implications for this crisis for our school and for our families. And you saw my communication yesterday, and I won't repeat all of that here, but just know that we're well aware that this crisis is impacting our families in many ways, including in financial ways. As we think about the future, one of the big questions on everyone's mind is when or if we will be able to return to campuses this year. If you look at the calendar, after Friday, May the 1st, there are only 3 weeks left in the school year. And as we sit here today, it does seem rather unlikely that we will safely be able to return to on-campus instruction then. The best case scenario that we're thinking about, maybe to do some kind of end of year community event, or some of our end of year events, we may be able to have some of that time on campus that would be optional to attend, but even that is unknown and perhaps overly optimistic. As I step back and reflect more broadly on this crisis in our school, I'm reminded of the words of Mr. Rogers, famous words that he offered in times of tragedy and great difficulty. We should look for the helpers. No matter the crisis, you will always find those helping others. And as I look around our school community, I see so many helpers. And I've never been prouder or more thankful to be a part of our Gulliver community. I've been so inspired how every member has responded to this crisis. Pressure can both break things and create diamonds. And I'm convinced that we will come out of this crisis stronger than ever before, more united as a school community. None of us would have wanted this, but I'm convinced we will be stronger because of it. Thank you for being a part of today's meeting. And I'm so pleased now to hand off the program to our head of school, Frank Steele.
Thank you very much, Cliff. I share your sense of pride in our community, and it's so great to connect with everybody again, as we did briefly through our recent video. I know that in a lot of our meetings, what we've been hearing and saying to each other is how much we miss the people at school. We had a faculty meeting the other day with the upper school with 150 little boxes of heads talking to each other, and it just felt so good to see each other. And I know we all long for that day that we can be back together on campus again. I do want to thank those of you who have taken the time to send notes about classes that you've sort of looked over your children's shoulders and seen teachers, or experiences where you've noticed something special happening. That is really sustaining for us. It helps us really keep our energy and our excitement about the work that we're doing in these difficult times. And we're so glad to have that feedback and that way of being together, even if, again, we're apart physically. I also want to thank everybody who filled out the survey. That gave us some really great information, and it showed the kind of partnership that we've always had with our parents and with our families. And it helped us to think about how school was going and what we could do to make it better. So on a very broad level, those survey results showed some good things and some things for us to work on. On the good side, the overall impression was remote school, even at those early stages, was working very well. In fact, 82% of our parents and 75% of our students, after those few days of teaching, said that remote school was going as well or better than they thought it would. And so it was really reassuring to know that we were doing the right kinds of things, and that we were offering an experience that was largely filling the void of being able to be together. The survey results also, it did give us some ways that we could think about some of the work that we needed to do to improve the experience. And I want to share back a couple of those things that we took as themes. A first one was that there was too much homework. That the balance of the school day with a long day of Zoom classes and screen time, followed by a lot of work trying to keep up with all the curricular material, was a little bit too much and was out of balance for our students. And a second big theme was that the flow of the day wasn't perfect, especially for our middle and upper school students, where lunch was coming at 11:30 and the afternoon seemed to be a little bit longer than felt right. And so we took that information and we rethought a couple of things, and we have changed with our faculty some of the expectations about what's an appropriate homework load. And we also looked at the schedules, and you received all of this in different principal letters yesterday with some of these updates of new schedules, new homework, guidelines, and new ways that we're thinking about how the program has to happen. And so we were so thrilled to be able to be in partnership with you that way, and to make these changes that we think are going to be really good for our students and the flow of their day and their ability to get the most out of the coursework that we're doing. A third theme was a lot of questions about what are we going to do about events. And as we were talking about all of our end of year school events as a team, things sort of fell into three groups of events. The first group was those events that unfortunately we just knew that we couldn't really do. Concerts and shows and other kinds of events that require audiences and venues and practice time together physically that just weren't going to work. And so unfortunately, we did have to cancel a number of those events. The second group of events were those that sort of fit in the flow of the school day and the school calendar. And those are things like award ceremonies and induction ceremonies and class competitions like the business showcase and some other things that really need to happen as part of the coursework that our students are doing or to recognize the work that they've done in school. And they can happen virtually. And so yesterday in those communications, you also got schedules that say when all of those events are, they show when they are, and you'll have the opportunity to attend those. And we will make sure to follow up with invitations and other information about when specifically those things are going to happen so that everyone can participate. But again, thank you for that feedback. We will continue to listen and to solicit feedback so that we can be making the best choices possible. And all of this points out that our whole goal, as Cliff said, our number one priority is the health and well-being of our community and particularly our students. And so the principals are now going to talk a little bit about different ways that we've been actively supporting the health and well-being of our students. And so I'm glad to turn it over to Jonathan Schoenwald, our assistant head of upper school and main campus prep principal. Thank you all for your participation, and thank you for joining us today. We're so happy to be trying to make this work.
Thanks, Frank. Good afternoon, everyone. I just want to start by saying, now you know that Frank and I are not the same person, right? You can see he was wearing different clothes, that we're not dressed the same. I'm seated, he was standing. So anyway, right? Evidence, incontrovertible evidence that we are not the same person. In any event, it's great to be with all of you today. I'm gonna, all of us, all the principals, gonna talk about the 5 elements of well-being, all right? So those, the way we talk about those things, it's spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, and emotional. I'm gonna start with the intellectual piece. And, you know, I think we can all agree that none of us probably would have chosen this environment to move school into very quickly, but it's what we were kind of, it was the hand we were dealt, so to speak. I have to tell you how impressed I am with our students, our teachers, our staff, everyone. People have adapted so quickly, it's kind of made all of our heads spin a little bit. And even though we see the limitations, there are also opportunities. And so that's actually what I want to talk to you about for just a second in terms of the kind of intellectual opportunities and how we learn and how we're learning a little bit differently these days. So as you know, schools usually change very slowly, carefully, deliberately, right? When we think about changing something, we poll all of our constituents, we go and visit other schools, we think about things in a really deep way. In some ways, we kind of do the opposite of what Mark Zuckerberg made famous, that quote, you know, move fast and break things, right? We never move fast and we definitely never break things. In the past 4 weeks, though, I would say that we've been doing something that's more akin to what you call design thinking, right? Where you look at a challenge or you look at a problem and you think about who is having this challenge or who's having that problem? How do we think about solving it? And then we go through an iterative process and we kind of continually improve things. So Frank mentioned the schedule. We've changed our schedule 3 times in basically 3.5, 4 weeks. Prior to that, we changed our schedule 3 times in about 40 years, right? We've set down policies about homework, about end of year assessments, about online behavior. All those things have emerged from all of our conversations and all of our interactions with students and teachers. Teachers have thrown themselves into using new tools, right? This is always a challenge because especially when you're entering the end of the year, you're expecting, I've got things planned, I know where I'm going, I know where I need to end up. All of a sudden, they needed to reassess. So they threw themselves into lots and lots of new online tools because they knew they had to figure out ways to reach the students. And then also, one of the things that I'm super impressed with is how our students are working together and independently, right? So in a lot of ways, this is like we're upping the expectations for our students so they understand, you know what, some of this just has to be on you, right? We're guiding you, we're with you all the way, but we can't come to your house, right? We don't have that collective feeling that we would get coming to campus every day. So, you know, on balance, there's no question that we wouldn't have chosen this if we had been given a choice. And we know that there are certain things that we just simply can't replicate, right? At the same time, you know, as one teacher said, this is what our students need, right? We can't be afraid of change, and we have to recognize the environment that we're working in, and we need to focus on what works, right? And so in a lot of ways, I feel like we're now acting a lot more like the students in the sense of thinking fast, thinking iteratively, and thinking about what works, right? And so again, this has been a new intellectual experience for all of us, and I can't tell you how much we value your support and your understanding, and it's working. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Melissa Sullivan, who's the principal at the Miller Drive campus, and she's going to talk about physical elements of well-being.
Welcome. It's so great to see. Can you see me? Welcome. It's so great to see everyone. Well, even though I can't actually see you. I'm going to touch a little on the physical element of well-being and caring for the body and tapping into the mind and connection. We think it's extremely important to stay active during this time. We're social creatures, and as difficult as it is to stay home all day, every day, hopefully you and your family are doing your best to take care of yourself, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Screen time can be exhausting, and it's important for all of us to do our best to stay active. During these last 3 weeks, I've had the opportunity to hear or see what's going on in some of our classes. So what are we doing to keep our students active throughout the day? Our PE department are facilitating online classes, giving students an outlet to participate in yoga, plyometrics, and other aerobic activities. Some of the classes are even using an app similar to Map My Run or Walk My Run. And through friendly competition, they're encouraging students to kind of compete with each other through their steps throughout the day. I've also seen PE teachers have, at the younger age, have the students use household items to substitute for work equipment. Never a bad idea. We need to improvise when quarantine, as I'm sure many of you have been doing. For example, cans can be great as a weight, and it's quite normal for me to lunge around my house holding my 6-month-old. Down the academy, they're doing a family workout time every day at 3 o'clock, which allows for entire families to join in the fun and get moving. So if any of you are around 3, please log in and join in the fun. Of course, the moving around is not limited to PE only. We've seen students acting out literary pieces in the English classes, science students taking field trips to their backyard to identify environmental concepts, and math students measuring different areas of their house to plug into algebraic equations. We're doing anything to keep our students active and engaged. Another strategy that I've seen in the classroom is brain breaks. Teachers are using them in their instructional practice. A brain break's a mental break designed to help students stay focused and attentive. The brain breaks get students moving to carry oxygen and blood to the brain. Some of the teachers have been participating in maybe a halftime stretch during their class or taking a lap around the house or the room. Again, just to get the blood flowing and get the students moving. Personally, for me, I'm a huge fan of the burpees. So if you like, try some burpees, that will get the blood flowing. Out of the classroom, our administration has teamed up with the activities directors to build remote events such as Spirit Week and opportunities to get the community involved through pictures, videos, and sharing through social media. I'm not sure if anyone saw the great TikTok video on Instagram, but those movements were tough to do. Lastly, take advantage of your time. Please remind your kids to take advantage of their breaks during their schedule. Encourage them to disconnect for 10 minutes, get a bite to eat, go to the restroom, move around and get that blood flowing. Really, it's an important piece of the day is to keep yourself moving and engaged. Anyway, even though I can't see you, I want to thank everyone for being part of this Zoom meeting. You know, at times you feel like you're talking to yourself. It's definitely a lonely place. I look forward to seeing everyone back on campus at some point. Until then, please be safe and keep moving. It is now my pleasure to invite Elizabeth Scott, our middle school principal.
Thank you, Melissa. I wanted to speak a little bit about how in our remote classrooms and through our assignments, we address the spiritual element of happiness and wellness. By spiritual, I don't necessarily mean religious, but more generally, helping students to appreciate the meaningfulness of life and see the benefits of being present in the moment. As I've popped into remote classrooms, I've definitely seen this in action. Many of our teachers start class with a question or quotation to get students reflecting and thinking about their life. Our science teacher, Mrs. Schneider, asks students every class at the beginning to reflect on what they're grateful for. She then shares an inspirational quote. On the day that I popped into her class, she shared an inspirational quote from one of my heroes, Mr. Rogers, and it's actually the quote that Cliff used earlier about when I was a boy and I'd see scary things in the news, my mother would say to me, look for the helpers. You will always find people who are helping. So I think that many of the discussions and themes in class that teachers would be having anyway about right and wrong, goodness and evil, what does it mean to be part of a society? What does it mean to be a global citizen? These ethical questions have become so much more poignant amidst this global pandemic. For instance, Mrs. Gonzalez had her 8th grade students compare the good character of Simon in Lord of the Flies to those helping with the coronavirus. The other thing I'm seeing a lot of is assignments that allow students to process and make meaning out of what they're experiencing, certainly through both poetry and art assignments. I just watched the final performance of the advanced dance class where students expressed an emotion through a dance they choreographed on themselves and videoed. Ms. Voci had students do self-portraits surrounded by the items in their household that were helping them through this experience. I actually have one. Here's Anita, our 5th grader, and you can see how neat these came out. So students are definitely taking time to reflect on what is important to them and what's meaningful in their lives. And now I'll introduce Donna Fong Yi, the middle school principal of the Montgomery Drive campus.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Hello to everyone out there. Looking after your emotional well-being is important as well during these challenging times. We've all been witnessing and experiencing a wide range of emotions: fear, anxiety, worry, loneliness, and for some of us, even loss. And I'm here to say that all of these emotions that we're feeling mean one thing: we're human. Based on the science of happiness, the first thing we can and ought to do is to give ourselves the permission to be human. Rather than denying or rejecting the painful feelings associated with any given situation, whether fear or frustration, anxiety or anger, it's better to allow these feelings to take their natural course. Giving ourselves the permission to be human means that rather than suppressing our emotions, we express them, be it by talking to people we trust or by simply allowing ourselves to laugh or cry. We are working to instill this resilience in our students while allowing them to feel the emotions that are naturally bubbling to the surface. Teachers are constantly checking in with students to get a pulse on how they're feeling, listening to their feedback on their workload, homework, grades, their focus and attention. And we realize that some students may not be at their academic best right now. And as you know, we're making adjustments as needed. In advisory, students are given the opportunity to talk in a non-academic setting to a group of people who they have cultivated relationships with all year. And the counselors have also been reaching out to their grade level students and families to provide support. Many of the students are not ready to talk yet, and that's okay. We'll continue to give them these opportunities. And finally, there's been an effort to help students reframe the current situation with an emphasis on the positive. Many of them have shared that they are enjoying the extra time with their families. They're getting to see parents who are usually traveling and are now at home. And others are getting along better with their younger siblings. Some are even learning how to play a new instrument. In closing, I'd like to share a bit of optimism. I came across this poem that some of you might have already seen, but it perfectly reframes the situation for this generation. Here are a few lines. What if instead of falling behind, this group of kids are advanced because of this? What if they enjoy the simple things like their own backyard and sitting near a window in the quiet? What if among these children, a great leader emerges who had the benefit of a slower pace and a simpler life to truly learn what really matters in this life? What if they are ahead? I leave you with that thought. And now, Rachel Griffin, primary and lower school principal.
Thank you, Donna. Good afternoon, everyone. It's wonderful to be here all together. And really being all together highlights a topic that I will be sharing, which is the importance of relational well-being. Relational well-being focuses on nurturing a constructive relationship with yourself and with others. And during this time of social distancing, this is one of the most challenging situations because we cannot be together physically, but it's also one of the most important because we need interaction. So for our students, ensuring that there's time in the school work each day is really important, but we've also built in time for them to be children, having downtime to get outside, taking those breaks, as Melissa Sullivan shared, spending time as a family, practicing a sport or playing an instrument for someone, having a little bit of an audience at home is wonderful. Playing board games or just connecting with friends are some of the ways to support those relational well-being characteristics and those needs. So how can you do that? And so many people have been so creative. And I think that's one of the things that has been quite uplifting during this time of being apart. And certainly technology has helped us with Zoom and with FaceTime. But in school, we're also, and working with the children, we're also teaching them to write letters. And for some of our students, they've never done this before. This was actually happening in our first graders where the students wrote letters to thank essential workers, and it tied really nicely into a writing unit. There's also an understanding of the importance of events and sort of showing up to support others, and it's such a great demonstration of empathy. This is happening a lot with virtual celebrations or even parades of cars driving by houses to honk and cheer for a birthday or a success with an accomplishment. And it's been wonderful for me to hear about some of these events that have taken place with our community members. It truly is inspiring, and it brings such great joy to know that we are continuing to celebrate members of our community. So during the day, we also continue to build our classroom communities, and this takes place during morning meeting Zoom sessions in the primary and the lower school. And in the first few days of remote learning, when I was popping into some classrooms, students shared some of the challenges they were experiencing. But they worked together and they supported each other to kind of think through strategies to make remote learning easier. And this was really helpful to everyone. More recently, I've been in meetings and things have shifted, certainly. Some of those early challenges are now more routine. And students talked more about favorite games they like to play, how they've come together as a family over the long weekend, for instance. They've introduced their class to perhaps a pet, or they've talked about favorite stuffed animal that they like to get to keep with them as their teacher is then going to read a story to the class. And it's sort of the value of that time and connecting students together so that they see their commonalities, knowing that we're all having a similar experience, that we can support each other to share ideas, possible solutions, and good shortcuts that we have learned. Certainly figuring out those shortcuts has been something that has supported me a great deal. And I really have enjoyed conversations and communications with both parents and faculty. And I find even sharing that with my friends has been really wonderful. It's so true as well for our teachers. They've learned how to work in this new remote world and still deliver fantastic, engaging experiences that connects all of our students. I share with all of my colleagues the pride that I have in our school community, and I want to wish you all, please stay safe and be healthy Raiders. I look forward to seeing you on campus hopefully soon. I now would like to introduce Dr. Ana Pazos, Director of Curriculum, Assessment, and Support Services.
Good afternoon. It is wonderful to be able to connect with our community, even if it is remotely, to share a little bit of the work that we have done around support systems and accommodations. Our mission to provide a superior personalized education guides the implementation of our curriculum. Our blend of learners requires individual strategies by each student to achieve their full potential. Whether we are learning in person or remotely, we strive to create trusting learning environments where students have the opportunities to develop, practice, and perfect the art of self-advocacy. At Gulliver, we decided to confront this unique and challenging time as an opportunity to encourage students to practice and hone in on some self-advocacy skills. We wanted to continue to offer a safe environment where students continue to reflect more about themselves as learners, get a clearer picture of what strategies are more effective for them, and build confidence to approach their teachers for tutorial opportunities and accommodations. All of these are hallmarks of a proficient self-advocate. To that end, our accommodations team led conversations across divisions on how to continue to honor. Oh, I think that my camera did not turn on. It's not going to. There we go. Can everyone see me now? Okay, so to that end, our accommodations team led conversations across divisions on how to continue to honor our accommodations policies. Both Lee Husband for the upper school and Bianca Pacheco for pre-K-8 are available to help teachers implement current accommodation plans in the remote learning environment and also to assist students. Our principals have discussed accommodations specifically and learning supports more generally with our faculty. Our support services teams of reading and math resource groups, guided study halls in the middle school, directed studies at the prep, and individual ARP sessions across divisions continue to be available to students who benefit from additional supports. They too have adjusted these interventions to increase opportunities for students to further develop self-advocacy skills by encouraging students to reach out to teachers consistently and discuss openly their learning and their learning needs, and also to prepare actively to participate in some of the tutorial sessions. By the way, across divisions, tutorials continue to be wonderful opportunities for students to confer with their teachers and learn more about themselves as learners. We are confident that these steps will all help to ensure that students with and without accommodations continue to receive the necessary supports to access our curriculum. Parents too can partner with us by prompting their children to reflect about their academic profile, explore and identify available resources within our school that may work for them, and engage in conversations about their learning with their teachers and peers. With continued and updated resources and working in partnership with our parents, we should continue to see that students increasingly feel empowered to drive their educational experience and become even more engaged in their own learning. Thank you for joining us today and for your continued partnership. Up next, you will be hearing from Ira Childress, our athletic director.
Thanks, Anna. When this whole COVID-19 came down and we were all out of school, obviously the first thought, as an athletic director, was really sad, to be honest. I was worried about our student athletes and the opportunity to compete, and the seniors that were coming up, and they wouldn't get a chance to participate in some of the events that they had practiced for 4 years, and that was difficult. But then I started to think about the foundation of our athletic department, and that brought me to a better place. And the foundation of our athletic department is 5 pillars Number one is student athlete welfare and well-being. And one of the things we did early on was we got with our coaches and said, hey, we want you to reach out to our student athletes and check on them. And initially, it's not about X's and O's, not about coaches, not about anything. Just see how their well-being is and see how they're doing. So that was very important to us, and our coaches did an excellent job in doing that. Number two is character. Our student athletes and coaches and staff throughout this whole situation have shown great character, and they have been pillars, in their spaces, which has been very, very important and key to our success. Number three is academic success. Just being in our staff meeting and hearing our faculty mention how there's great attendance and how our student athletes are really locked in and they're on their Zoom calls and they're doing everything they need to do in this remote learning environment. That really reigns supreme in terms of what we're trying to do here in Gulliver Athletics. Number four is the athletic experience. So one of the things we did after we met with our student athletes to check on their well-being, we talked to them and see if they still wanted to practice remotely and they still wanted to get together and do some things from a practice standpoint. And they have done that, and the remote practices have been going well. I was sad one day just thinking about a lot of things, and I got a text message from our youth sports director, Heather Levine, and in that text message was flag football going on with our Zoom practices and also basketball going on with the youth Zoom practices. And I just remember smiling, watching that and seeing that. Those are the type of things that are extremely important during times like this. And number five is scholarships. We vowed to help all of our student athletes who are interested in the next level getting scholarship opportunities. And we've done that. Gary, our director of college athletic recruiting, has been really great. Peter and his whole counseling staff have done an outstanding job of working with families. We've met with numerous of families throughout this time. Our athletic department has also developed 10 tips for recruiting, the recruiting process during this whole COVID-19 situation. So those are the things that I really kind of harken back to, during this time. And I couldn't be more proud of all of our staff and all of our student athletes. To borrow some words from my 2-year-old son, with his small grasp of the English language, every time we ride in his car, he always says, "We got this, Daddy." And I think about that when I think about Gulliver. We have this, Gulliver. We can do this, and we're all in this together. So with that being said, let's keep working together and keep staying together, and we will get through this together. I'm going to pass it on now to Manti Santalidis, our prep social science faculty staff.
Hey there, everybody. Thank you, Ira. Hi, I'm Mr. Santelises, and I teach international politics and law at the Prep. This is a challenging time for educators, but these challenges go far beyond the classroom. And we know that our students are dealing with a lot of new stresses. Our families are dealing with stresses. And so a lot of what we do traditionally has had to kind of shift. And I know that there is a lot of worry and concern. I get the question every day of, Santi, when is this going to end? When is this going to end? And it's a tough question. What I've reflected on at the beginning of all this was there's a book by Malcolm Gladwell, David and Goliath, and he talks about the London bombings during World War II. And in that book, he categorizes the people that lived in London into 3 different categories: direct hits, near misses, and remote misses. And what he kind of looks at is the remote misses were the majority. So while we're not directly, hopefully at the time, affected by everything we're seeing on the news, our students are still internalizing that. And it is a lot of stress on them and on their families. But what he does go on to make the point is that the remote misses basically created the Great Generation, and it empowered the generation to take stock of what they almost lost, of what they had, of what changed radically in a very short span of time. And it emboldened them to take on more ambition. And I'm optimistic. I see it in my students every day, even you know, through the pain of not being able to see each other and coming to school, that there is hope. And I think that they're taking stock of that. With regards to education, we're kind of right there in the middle with that generation. And it's important that we take some kind of perspective on the values of remote learning. It isn't, it is different, but it isn't, it is not without its own value. It's created an opportunity for teachers at the prep to challenge traditional teaching styles. And it's given us ample room to put a lot of control back into the hands of the students. This can be seen with how we're rethinking instruction, how we're rethinking assessment methods, and how we're really stripping our classes down and getting to the heart of what they are all about. It's a powerful way of encouraging students to become connected with the content, which is one of the kind of dreams of every educator. Transitioning my classes to remote learning has been facilitated by Zoom and their different functions there. The use of breakout rooms for my international politics class has been really valuable. We just finished working on a trade deal, 6 students to a breakout room. They had to pretend they were the only 6 countries left in the world, and they had to put together a trade deal based on that. It took about 3 class periods to prepare for it, get it done, and then assess whether or not it worked, whether or not it was meaningful. And that is, I think, one of the most valuable things coming out of this, is that we are collaborating with our students with regards to how they want to use the hour that we are with them. And that is an incredible, powerful tool. It translates into engagement. When a student has ownership of the content, when students are more involved in how the assessments are delivered, are administered, they become more connected to the course material. And so there's nothing lost there. For my law classes, we've shifted from mock trials in class to conversations on ethics, debates on what is justice and accountability during a health crisis. I'm working with them now. We started this last class on how we're going to put together our first virtual mock trial. Another great advantage is just the amount of resources that are pouring in from all over the world, really, as educators face this pandemic. And the amount of collaboration, cooperation that's going on internationally and even here at home. On Monday, I was able to attend a Model UN webinar where we were basically walked through what it would look like to put on a Model UN committee virtually on Zoom. And it's possible. It's completely possible. And I introduced my students to the idea today, and they're excited, and they want to work on the background guides, get everything moving. These things make them kind of distracted for a little bit, even though we will be talking about COVID-19 in our simulation. It allows them to think about it in a way where they understand what proactive measures are. They understand what it means to value government, which is the goal of so many of my colleagues in the social studies department and throughout the school, to show the value of science, of government, of what's really going on in the world. So we are at the kind of epicenter of their perception of what's going on, and we're taking that with a lot. We're looking at that as a sacred duty, as a call, and this is working out. You know, the drawbacks obviously are that they are missing each other. The social component of high school and their overall realization that they actually enjoy coming to school and that they miss it is something that they will carry with them forever, and it'll be beneficial for them in the long run. More than ever, we realize now that school as an institution for our students and for all of us who went through school, it's a safe space. It's a place where you go and you meet people and you feel comforted by their friendships and by the sense of community. Like I mentioned, I'm optimistic. I think this generation will be empowered because of this. I think that you don't always know what you have until it's gone. And I think that that's going to translate into a lot of more engagement with our community. I think we're going to be stronger and better because of this. And I look forward to the rest of the school year, regardless what happens, to see how this as an education experiment and what we're doing, it's worked, and what we're going to keep from it and what we're going to learn from it, not just as educators, but as students and our families. So with that, I pass the mic on to Ms. Rodriguez-Feo from the Academy. Thank you all for being here today.
Hi. I'm Miss Marucci, and I wanted to thank you first for the opportunity to show you a little bit of what the teachers have been creating behind the scenes. We have been very busy creating basically from scratch a lesson for every area of our curriculum. In kindergarten, we realized that the kids are going to need a lot of support. Emotional, social is such a big part. They need such a big part of us with them, and we can't provide that. So I have some props to show you because I'm a kindergarten teacher, and this is Mabel. And Mabel is part of our kindergarten phonics curriculum. Children are very used to seeing Mabel, learning with Mabel. So one of the things I created is I tried to give them a sense of, oh, I know what that's all about, something they're missing at school, like the calendar behind me. And I created lessons. With the help of many people that helped me learn some apps, I created lessons where Mabel and other puppets, because we're full of puppets, are dealing with their social emotional skills that we're not there to deal with in person. So one of the things we did is Mabel, because we had some parent feedback, stood in my backyard and told them all about how they have to listen to mommy and daddy now. And then mommy and daddy are now the teachers. And sometimes that means, yeah, they're the boss. So we put it together using different apps, and we're shooting it off to parents with another app. And the puppets are helping them learn at home. They're helping them kind of make sense of their day and their life, this upside down life that they're having. In the coming weeks, we are going to talk about a voice and how children have a voice. So this week, actually, as a matter of fact, today, the children were introduced to a few young activists like Malala and Greta, and we used the writing curriculum, which is persuasive, and we used our Earth Day science curriculum, which is Earth Day next week, and we used our social studies, and we put it all together, and I made a presentation for them where the puppet they know introduces them to people that are really using their voice to change the world. And kind of to connect to what everything is that social emotional piece that we know they need a little help. We know that, yes, we have to teach them all the academic stuff, but before the academic stuff really makes sense, they have to feel good. So I wanted to thank you again for allowing me to show you some of the things that, and tell you about some of the things that we're doing. And we know that it is an integral part of our family's life that everyone feels like they have a safe place. And right now they don't have school, but they do have us. And I think it's really kind of interesting to show what a big Gulliver family we are, is that the kindergarten teacher is going to introduce the director of guidance and college counseling, Peter Ulrich. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's great to be with everybody today. We've been struck in the counseling offices across both campuses, or all four campuses rather, that during this time we really have two very important tasks. We have to have a plan and make plans to meet the world's expectations and all the changes to the academic life the kids are living and the landscape of higher education. But we also very simply need to meet our kids right where they are during this difficult time. And I will say there isn't anything better in some ways for remembering that there's a future out there and that life will be returning back to normal or to some version of normal than helping kids through the college selection process in April. For as challenging as things have been, for our juniors and seniors especially, and our seniors who are going to be missing out potentially on so many things that are normal rites of passage. The choices that they're making right now about what's next for them, for all the uncertainty, are really exciting. So I want to share some of that news with you. As every April, that's certainly part of what we like to do as a community. There's a lot to celebrate on the Miller Drive campus this spring with regard to students' opportunities for the coming years. Miller students working with Renee McEachran and her staff were admitted to places as ranging as American University, BU, UC Irvine, Clemson University, Colorado Boulder, UConn, Fordham, EA in Spain, Loyola Chicago, Loyola Maryland, Notre Dame, Penn State, URI, Rice University, Syracuse, the Naval Academy, Vanderbilt, Wesleyan, and Wheaton, and more. It's a really exciting year. On the prep campus, we had students seeking out small liberal arts colleges in somewhat great numbers this year, being admitted to places like Colorado College, Carleton, Bowdoin, Amherst, Bates, Wellesley, Barnard, and also to major research universities all over the globe, from Brown, Cal Poly, UCLA, UC Berkeley, Cornell, Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Penn, Princeton, Georgetown, Northwestern, St. Andrews, Stanford, MIT, Johns Hopkins, Duke, Tufts, Carnegie Mellon, Pomona, Babson, the list goes on. We've had students admitted to art schools and music conservatories all over the world. I had a musical theater student who was one of 11 students worldwide admitted to her program. From big research universities in the Midwest to small colleges in the Southwest, colleges and universities throughout the US, Canada, and Europe. A lot of really exciting opportunities for our kids, and I couldn't be prouder of them as they make their choices right now. I will say it's been interesting to try to keep pace with all the changes in higher education with COVID-19. With our seniors, we've had to really dig into a lot of intensive individual conversations with kids and their families about issues ranging from family finances to remote learning in the fall and how that might change their plans, timetables changing from the traditional ones in college admissions, changes to their AP and IB exams and status, remote campus visits instead of being able to visit in person. Different kind of research has been going on, a different kind of thinking with our seniors. And it's been very intensive, but also super rewarding to work with kids and their families through those decisions. This is also a time when the junior class works very intensely through the college counseling process, doing a lot of their own initial research, meetings with us, and learning things from how to use good research tools to getting their teacher recommendations to working on essays. We've had to, we've really made a strong effort to take everything that our traditional programming does, but to have a good deal more individual and family contact with regard to our junior programming. And so while we've done that and tried to be really creative, we're monitoring changes to things like the SAT and ACT and when they might be available again. Schools going test optional for a year, online visiting versus in-person visiting. And we found that creativity and contact are really the keys. So those are the outside world pieces. Inside, really meeting kids where they are emotionally during this time. We've tried to communicate across grade levels to meet the needs of kids in different stations in their life and in the school. And so counselors across all campuses have been very focused on communication with students and teachers, with families, trying to find ways to keep our eyes and ears on kids who may be having a hard time. And it's different in a remote environment, but we have great partners. And so we've sent letters home, including resources to focus on student wellness. We've done that by grade level. Middle and lower school counselors are popping into classes and holding Zoom office hours and really trying to make sure that they get a lot of contact with their kids. Upper school counselors are in regular communication with kids that we've already identified who we were concerned about before we went into being sequestered here, but also working closely with teachers, with deans. We're encouraging partnership and identifying kids who might be having trouble with attendance or perseverance or academic performance or anything that's going on for them. We've sent some resources home and we've had some communication to parents, but I guess we did want to leave you with a few big takeaways that we'd like to share. First, please let us know when your students are struggling in any way or exhibiting behavior changes that concern you. Obviously, this is a really disruptive time and there's a lot that's changing. But we ask you to be in touch, a little more than you feel you might, rather than a little less. We want to know. Please also remember, for all the conversations happening right now about finances and about our fears about what's happening in the world, that limiting our kids' exposure to our own anxieties and worries is actually really important too. They're watching us like hawks. And so we ask for your partnership in that as well. And finally, we really just want to partner with you in every way that we can to make sure that we are providing your kids with the support they need to make the last part of this year and their entry into summer as positive and as engaged as it can be. We've been super grateful for the partnership with our teachers, for the incredible job our faculty and administration have done in pulling together what has really been a community experience. And we are looking forward to remaining in close contact with you and to continuing to keep an eye on kids through the end of the year to provide a great finish to the year. And with that, it's my pleasure to turn things back to Beth Hughes, who's our Prep Parent Association Chair.
Thank you, Peter. I think everyone can see me. I just want to thank you all for joining us. And as a parent watching that meeting, I have to say, I was emotionally moved at how hard our administrative team is working to make the educational continuum continue. And I'm so proud to be at Gulliver and to have my kids being educated by all of you amazing people. So thank you, administrative staff and teachers, on behalf of all of us, the parents on the Parent Administration. We're very proud of you and we're really happy to be supporting you. Parents out there, if you are not signed into your Remind chat for communications at the prep, please stay alerted to those, because that's how we'll be continuing to pass along some important information. Finally, if you have a senior in the class of 2020, make sure again that you look in that Remind chat, because we'll have some good surprises coming up for our seniors who rightly deserve the specialness that they're not getting right now, unfortunately, in this difficult time. So thank you, parents, for tuning in. I hope you all stay safe and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.